All right. This is the Tell Me About It podcast. I'm Stella Graham. This is where I get to talk to people who know stuff because I don't. There's only so much reading of Wikipedia I can do, people. I need to learn from people who know plenty of stuff. Now, my guest today is the fabulous Iszi Lawrence. Hello.
Hello. Yes, I am fabulous. And I believe that we're going to talk about jiu-jitsu. Is that not correct? You want to know about beating people up?
We are, but
Excellent.
before that, I'm gonna tell these wonderful people all about Iszi Lawrence. I mean, they obviously know all about you, but for the one or two who might not, Iszi Lawrence, you are a writer, comedian, podcaster, history presenter. You've recently been seen on Netflix, The Lost Pirate Kingdom, co-host of BBC Radio 4's flagship show, Making History with Tom Holland, the British Museum membercast, the Z-List Dead List. And during 2020, you thought, that's not enough podcasts. Let's get another one in there. You got one about dinosaurs called Terrible Lizards with Dr. Dave Hone. And at some point, you also wrote a book, The Unstoppable Letty Peg, with another one in the pipeline. Izzy, you're very productive, which is making me feel quite bad. Oh, there we go. So now we know what it looks like. However, I could have picked a multitude of things to talk about with you, but I also know that you know a lot about jiu-jitsu. Can you tell me about that?
Well, it came about because I was doing the Z-List Dead List podcast. And the Z-List Dead List, I interview people like your good self, or it happened to be Dr. Naomi Paxton, very funny comedian, Ada Camp if you don't know her. Anyway, she was telling me about this lady called Edith Garrett. Now, Edith Garrett worked with the suffragettes at the turn of the century, and she trained their bodyguard, and she trained them using a combination, like a mixed martial arts of Schwingen, Bartitsu, and Jiu-Jitsu. I know, Bartitsu. It was named after a guy called
Schwingen, actually, because it just gave me a
Schwingen. It was Schwingen. Okay,
Wayne's
that's just
that was the
whacking. Swing. Different types of the savate as well, which is a French type of wrestling. I think she did as well. But the idea is that Bartitsu came about because a guy called Edward Barton Wright, who was basically MMA mixed martial artist back in 1890s, and he combined everything for a gentleman to protect himself. And you think, well, I don't know anything about this, why would I care? Because it's the martial art that Sherlock Holmes uses, is Bartitsu. So it's using your cape, your top hat.
Did martial art. You are
That's why he's good at fighting.
Nuggets of knowledge here, Izzy, that I'm struggling to keep up with here. First off, I didn't know Sherlock. I thought he just solved crimes and stuff.
He does solve crime, but the thing is, Moriarty knows how to fight. You've seen, Benedict Cumberbatch getting all sort of sweaty and punching people. That is in the books too.
I mean, books. Sure, there's a reason this podcast is educating the thick here, Izzy. But what I'm getting from you is a reading list. I know that.
Shh. It's fine. You can watch the telly. When you see Sherlock Holmes beating up somebody, that he is using ancient Japanese, traditional Japanese martial arts of locking your opponent up. Because where Jiu-Jitsu comes from, this is what I learned. So my interest started there because I found out about Edith Garrett and then went, I need to do some exercise. I'll see if anybody's doing this Jiu-Jitsu. Yeah. And a lot of the Jiu-Jitsu that's popular now is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which came from Japan via a different route.
I thought Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu involved some form of hair removal, like you get a wax.
No, not so much. It's more about, it's about choking. It's about choking mainly. The thing is, we have to imagine is you've got feudal Japan, you've got samurais coming in, and different people fighting each other, and the peasants get caught up in it, so they need to defend themselves. So they use farming equipment and that sort of thing to defend themselves. The method of battle gets handed down generation to generation, turns into jiu-jitsu, which means the gentle way. Okay, so it's literally using your opponent's big, heavy armor and the fact they're bigger than you, sometimes they're, riding things, that sort of thing, to take them down and just, not get killed. Is basically, it's a defensive martial art. Now that then in, the late 19th century got translated into different things. So we got to do this for competition. So we're going to do things like judo, which is one-on-one throwing each other to the mat. If you can throw them, you get a point. If they land on their back, that's an ippon, you get points, that sort of thing. Okay. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is you're starting a similar position to judo, but you don't get a point for a throw. You get a point basically choking them out, locking them up so they tap and they submit. That is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Right. What I do is the Japanese martial art Jiu-Jitsu, which is you don't have one opponent, you have the entire club. And they're going to come at you one at a time with different weapons, like a samurai, but now we modernise it, so it's baseball bat, metal chain, stuff like that. And you've got to try and get rid of their weapons, get them on the floor and get ready for the next person, and you've got to continually do that until the sensei says stop. Wow. So that is what I do. And I got into that through the history of it, literally, because I do history podcasts and I love history. Okay. Love it, right? And that is how I started. I was just Googling, do people still do this? And I was like, they do it. And it is cheap. Let us do this then. And it's one of these weird things about martial arts in general is a lot of comedians like doing martial arts, and there is a reason for it, because it feels very familiar. Because if you're a comedian, you get on stage and you tell jokes. Yes. And you have a set of jokes that you know to use, but the audience is always slightly different. And it's a bit like fighting somebody that you've never fought before. Okay. It's like, well, I know what I can do. Here are my options. Here are my jokes that I can do. Here are the techniques I can do. Here's the locks I can do. Here's the throw, that sort of thing. But what am I going to do that's going to work on this audience? And on stage, you have this massive wash of adrenaline because you're in front of like sometimes hundreds of people. Yes. And in the dojo, you have a massive wash of adrenaline because if you don't move your feet, you're going to be knocked unconscious.
So have you ever tried in the dojo when someone approaches you just trying a joke? Just to see if you can disarm
Yes, I used to do that. I used to talk through my V. So a V this is specifically the TJJF. We do a thing where the club attacks you, and it's really gentle attacks. It's the jujitsufoundation.org, which is my sort of like little school. It's an international school of Japanese jiu-jitsu. Okay. And so what happens is the club will line up, and if you're like a little novice or a yellow belt, they'll walk up to you and they'll punch like this, and basically sometimes they'll retract the hand really, but it's a really slow, gentle punch. And the idea is you do a technique on them and you hit them or you do something and they go, you got me, and I move on and the next person comes out. Now, when I used to do that, because I knew I was doing everything wrong, I would commentate as I did it, just go, well, that was bad, and oh my goodness, I can't do this very well, and what am I doing? It's, and it turns out if you do that, when the attacks come faster, you lose your breath and you can't speak anyway. So you got to, you got to keep keeping on. But so jiu-jitsu is defending yourself in very silly and lovely ways.
That was interesting. I liked the sort of comparison of how a comedy gig and fighting, because that's always been my approach, Izzy. It's like, well, if they're not going to laugh, it's a fight. Some of the gigs I do. Anyway.
Well, I've had that thing where you're a disappointment. Like if you've ever opened for a big act, and they see you cooking. I literally had to open for Alan Davis, and my opening line was, "Don't worry, he is coming. He's not here yet. I am here too. I am here to see him as well. Listen to me for the next 10 minutes, and we can get through this, or just chat among yourselves if you really want to. I'm quite funny. I'm not his level funny. Up to you." And from that, it was much better, because I did try and be funny before Stuart Lee before.
Aha.
That was like standing in between Mummy Bear and her cubs. That was not good.
Lots of arm folding.
Yeah, lots of that sort of thing. But yeah, so
you weren't tempted to just launch into the crowd and kick the shit out of them with your jiu-jitsu?
Well, the thing is, I only know how to defend myself. I'm rubbish if I need to attack someone. Because that's the trouble with jiu-jitsu is, like, we use a temi, so we learn to strike, but it's usually a strike, so it bends them in a certain way so you can throw them easier. And it's usually because they've already attacked you, so they're already slightly off balance, because in order to, really go for somebody, you've got to put yourself off balance, and it's quite annoying.
You could go with the trash talk to wind them up sufficiently so that then they attack you. We're playing the long game here. This is how you...
Exactly. And then you've got to be perfectly right distanced and also not muck it up, and it's very easy to muck it up.
Well, this was a question I had about sort of you're in the dojo, everybody knows what's about to happen, but sort of real life outside of there, have you ever had to take someone down outside Waitrose?
No, it's really useful. I would never been able to do it. Somebody attacked me, like punchy, just run. Even like we do sort of mock attacks where people come at you with knives and you have to take them. And like come like a real attacker who's mad and you're getting stabbed at least, you're getting cut. It's just, generally, if somebody shows you a knife, they're not going to use it on you. Just give them your stuff. Because if somebody wants to stab you, you do not see the knife.
Interesting.
As a rule. Right. Also, if you see somebody come at you and the blade is this way, you're all right. If the blade is this way, they know
that's your kind of
vertical. If it's a vertical blade, they're not out to kill you. If it's a sideways blade, they're trying to kill you. So
these are some good tips I'm
learning. Because you've got to get through the rib cage. Yeah, you got to get through the rib cage, you see, and if it's sideways, it's much easier, and you can do much more damage. Don't stab people, everyone, but that's tends to be a good sign. But yeah, the only time I've ever used it is drunk audience. I was at a gig where this guy, I was emceeing it, and it was like the second break, and this guy had been an absolute bellend through the entire first 2 sections. I mean, literally everybody had. Are we allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool. Everybody had called him a cunt repeatedly because he was that drunk. He was there with a group of his mates. It was a stag do type situation. And he was a big guy. He's probably only about 20 years old. And he was so drunk. He didn't know where he was. Anyway, and then during the break, he'd sort of done that thing that men do when, you are a woman and he's at a bar. And he's looking at me going, she's spoken to me. Not even remembering I'd been on stage, but just going, not even remembering the thing I said to him was "shut up, you cunt." It wasn't that. It was literally, a woman has spoken to me. Ergo, she must love me. Ergo, I'm going to feel her up, which is what he did. He grabbed me by the waist. He was bigger than me, and this hand just moved really slowly, either towards my head or my boob. And I thought, I don't want this. But the thing is, I'm so used to a really slow punch attack.
Sure, right.
It's literally the same movement. So I just thought, wrist lock 1. And I just literally, without thinking, I just immediately put this on. And it sort of bent his arm back like this. And, I could feel it quite tense. And I sort of walked through it a bit. It didn't crack his wrist or anything. But it was that instant thing where no matter what I said, he was too drunk to understand English. Whereas instant pain, he went, oh, this is not good. She doesn't like me. And let it go.
Wow.
And it was that immediate thing of going, oh, right, because men really do respect. If you can handle yourself, it's kind of a thing. But no, I mean, I'm not even pretending. Like in the dojo, every single, we do a thing called knife bottle kosh, where somebody comes attacks you with a knife, then straight away with the bottle, and then straight away with the kosh. So as soon as you disarm the knife, the bottle's coming in. A kosh is like a long stick, the police baton.
Oh yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, because there's quite a lot of police officers who also do jiu-jitsu. They're all, I have literally stabbed a police officer several times. And I've had,
This is hot plastic knife. No knife crime, everybody. I have totally
no knife crime, but knives are so much fun.
Plastic
so
knife.
Do slash attacks and stabs, but it's all very showy. So, in reality, I'm getting cut. And we don't use sharps until you're a black belt. So, a mate of mine was going for his black belt and had to delay it because he sliced his arm open.
Whoopsie. That's that's not good.
But it's really good fun, and I just love the fact that it was used. So, the suffragettes actually used this to stop, police officers arresting them. There's this amazing time where they went up from London to Glasgow, and there was a warrant out for Emmeline Pankhurst to be arrested, and she was giving a talk in Glasgow. So the police had sort of guarded everywhere in this thing in Glasgow, and the bodyguard had gone up on the train with Indian clubs, which are like bowling pins. They're shaped like bowling pins, all in their dresses and stuff like this, and tried to sleep, and they had a horrible time. And they got up there, and they went in, and brilliantly, Emmeline Pankhurst had decided what she was going to do was buy a ticket to her own show, walk in with the crowd, and then she got up, went there. The police immediately stormed and tried to arrest her. It took them 11 minutes to arrest her because the bodyguard beat the hell out of the officers. One officer never worked again. He wasn't killed, but 11-minute fight is a lot.
That's a long time.
I mean, that's if you think about your average boxing match, how long that is.
Yeah, about
so
3 minutes.
The fact that these are women fighting men, and everybody says, "Oh, that's terribly sexist. Women just as strong as men." We are not as strong as men at all. They're bloody chimps. Even the weak, the little ones. You think, "Oh, it's a little man. That'd be fine." No, sir. And until you actually fight them, you don't appreciate how much stronger they are. Because you're always like, when you're like, if you've been with a fella and he's a bit rough play and that sort of thing, he's been so gentle. Yes. You have no idea. Just trying to get a man's hand from your lapel, trying to get rid of it without, the amount of times I've had to bite and kick, and that's the only thing you do. Go after their nasty bits. You don't actually need to hit them in their googlies. And the best thing you can do, just as a recommendation, is just do this movement. So flick.
Oh, the flick.
That freaks them out way more than a punch does. The flick.
Is it a similar thing also to when you twirl up a tea towel and sort of give it a flick? Or
exactly towel? That. That makes them win. That psychologically makes them go much more than threatening to punch them. They kind of build up to a punch or a kick, but a flick, they just go just psychologically. They're very delicate. So you don't have to hurt anybody that way. But yes, if you want to stop a man in his tracks, just walk past and go like that near the junk. They don't like it.
And did they teach you that in jiu-jitsu, or is that just something you found
out? They do. I mean, they also teach us how to bite and things like that as well, effectively. So, because it is a martial art, it's not a sport. So part of my grading was I face the wall, and at some point somebody's going to come up, take both my ankles out, so I fall forward onto my thing, and then 3 men are going to get on me.
Wow.
And I've got to get up as fast as possible.
That sounds hard.
And the only option you have then is your teeth and being as nasty as possible. And the thing is, I don't think that would work in real life when somebody really wanted to hurt you. But the fact that these guys, you have to hope that the person who wants to hurt you only like 70% wants to hurt you rather than 100%. Right. 100%, there's almost nothing unless you're very skilled. And I'm not.
Super impressed with the technique you used on the fella who tried to.
It's kotegaeshi, wrist lock one. Kotegaeshi.
The way you just rolled it off, that's wrist lock one. I'm like, tell me.
Yeah, no, there are. Well, I think there's kotegaeshi, orakote, kotegatami, kotodori, kotohinari, and kototoshi.
Watch the YouTube.
So there's 6 wrist locks. Yeah, 6 wrist locks, 8 arm locks, 8 headlocks. So I know how to break your neck. I can kill you in 8 ways, which is pretty cool. There are 44 throws.
Wow, that's quite a lot.
That's just for my brown belt that I'm going for next. Yeah, there's a lot. And I'd only ever used 3. But the thing is, it's all about your body shape and how you do things. And so you need to learn them all in order, in the future, when you want to teach it and understand how other people work, it's that. And it's, I think, and then there's like ground holds and leg locks and all the rest of it. But only about, the big difference between Brazilians all pretty much on the ground. We're about 10% on the ground, and it's mainly on our feet, because the trouble is, if you're on the ground and there's 2 attackers, you're going to get your head kicked in.
See, I've picked up from things like UFC. I think Joe Rogan is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy.
He's a UFC commentator.
Yeah.
And he's a black belt in Taekwondo and Brazilian, I think. He's pretty skilled.
Another one not to mess with. But I had seen in UFC a lot of writhing on the ground and stuff. There are times when I'm watching it going, I'm not sure if this is a fight anymore or something slightly more erotic.
It's just
the way they're all.
It's really exhausting. Yeah. If you've ever wrestled, it's really exhausting.
I've tried boxing. Just even the action of throwing punches on a bag for any length of time is fairly knackering. So. Haven't made
with boxing, the skill is not getting punched in the face. I'm quite good at hitting. I'm really bad at not getting punched in the face.
Yes.
It's kind of hard. Moving out the way is difficult. And it's really hard not to go for their legs all the time as well, because you know where they're stepping, and I can just sweep their leg. I know how to sweep the leg. Why can't I sweep that? I'm not allowed.
Well, how long have you been doing jiu-jitsu?
coming up to 6 years, but one of those years I haven't done it at all because of COVID. So,
yeah, it's hard to socially distance, throw someone on the ground, I suppose.
Yeah, you can't bite people when it's difficult.
With a mask on.
But yeah, so and I'm a dark blue belt, which is one off brown, which is one off black belt. So
can you take me quickly through the belts, the colours? So
if
you're a beginner.
This is just our foundation, but you're a novice, so you're white belt, you're a maggot. Then you're all the citruses, so you're yellow, orange, and green. And then you're a purple belt, which is pretty good if you're a purple belt. Then you're a light blue belt, and then you're a dark blue belt, which is what I am. And then you're a brown belt, and then you're a black belt.
Ooh, and you're going all the way for the black belt, I guess?
I think I might be a bit too old to get my black belt because it hurts too much. The stuff you have to do to get your black belt, it's quite... Because you're getting thrown from men's head height. Like, I literally have to... My friend Finn is 6'4", and he will bend over, so he'll hip hinge and put his hands on his knees, and I have to jump up and sit on his back and fall backwards off it.
Oh, that doesn't sound fun.
No, but yeah, the idea is you survive that fall and you do it again and you do it again. I have to dive over people, I get thrown tomonagi, so I get thrown straight over people and have to land. And the thing is, when you're a 22-year-old boy, and you're still quite bouncy, that's all right. I'm in my 30s and it hurts a lot, and I'm an old lady. I'm a very old. I worked out, marathon, if you're over the age of 35 in a marathon, you are a senior. If you're a woman, when you're 40 and you're a man, you're a senior. But women, we age badly. So I don't know. I mean, I'll have a go. The thing is, there's nothing that you can't do as a brown belt that you can do as a black belt, because you can have your own club and you can teach as a brown belt. It's just that you don't have that extra special Dan, which says that I can risk getting stabbed. And I think one guy in his grading had he had to defend himself against car keys. Which is difficult. It's difficult. But anyway, if you want to find out more about jiu-jitsu, my book, The Unstoppable Letty Peg, it is for kids, but I know black belts who have read it and who've enjoyed it. But it is about the suffragettes at that time doing jiu-jitsu. So
I'm so going to read that now. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it's really good fun. It's about a little kid. I teach little girls to be violent and nasty.
Oh, I wish.
Yes, and to beat up police officers. The baddie in this book is Winston Churchill.
That's going to upset some people, I'm sure, but I'm into it.
Oh yes.
I wish something like this had been around when I was growing up, because how fun does that sound? I don't want to learn how to do a cartwheel. I want to learn how to kick the shit out of someone if they attack me.
Cartwheel is the breakfall from tomonagi, so you'd have to learn to do a cartwheel as well. Otherwise, you risk splitting your head open. But
Exactly. We are approaching that point in the pod where I have to ask, everybody loves a shout out. Would you like to shine a spotlight on a mate?
I've got lots of mates who write books. So Caroline Lawrence, all of her books are amazing. If you like kids' books set in ancient Rome, these are really good. Time Travel Diaries, also very good. David Quantick is amazing. You probably know him from doing basically writing all the cool TV shows. He also writes a book. This one called Night Train is really freaky. You're basically on a really weird kind of scary sci-fi train going to hell, but are you? I don't know. And then obviously, even though she doesn't need this, Natalie Haynes, Pandora's Jar is her latest one. I really liked her one, what's it called? 1,000 Ships, which was about the siege of Troy from all the women's perspective. That was brilliant. This one is also very, very good. But if you haven't read any of hers, get the 1,000 Ships one, because it is both really tragic and really funny. But those are books. If you're into your sitcoms, if you're a nerdy comedian into sitcoms, check out Simon Dunn's. He's got a little podcast out, which is all about the history of sitcom, and it's brilliant. He's at Sidun on the Twitters, SIGHDONE. And if you're also into your poetry, check out AF Harold at AF Harold's with 2 R's. But he's very good as well and does kids' books. So do that. I think that's the most extensive shiner spotlight. Sorry. There's a lot of people in this. No, it's great. It's good. This is how, I like to discover new things, and we've certainly got a good selection. You have pretty much quadrupled the books in my bookshelf, so that's a good thing. Literally, when I moved house, I had to take my collection down from 7,000 books to 4,000, and it was really horrible.
Oh, see, I'm more of a e-book person, just because
Yeah,
the iPad's
it
not
makes
that
sense
heavy.
for shelf space. But yeah, we have a lot of books.
Well, if anyone's interested in Izzy's library, then feel free to get
Please don't add to it. Stop writing good things, you horrible people.
Cool. Before I let you get back to your library or beating people up or whatever it is, of the many multitude of things you do, can you tell our listeners and viewers what you're up to, where we can stalk you, and all that good stuff?
Yeah. Iszi.com is the place to go. ISZI.com. That is where you find out everything. But I'm really proud, and we need to do this again and talk about dinosaurs, because I will amaze you with dinosaur facts in that they survived the KT extinction. Did you know that? The dinosaurs didn't get all killed out by the meteorite, because they're actually on your bird feeder right now. But yeah, terriblelizards.co.uk is my podcast about dinosaurs, which has got very little violence in it, but it's proper good. Very proud of it. And all the other podcasts you mentioned at the top are also very good. But yeah, do check me out. And obviously Netflix, The Lost Pirate Kingdom. We got to #1 in Canada, not calendar. That's silly.
You got to #1 in both. That's cool. That's nice.
Yeah, and #2 in UK and USA, but #1 in Canada and Denmark.
I'd still be pretty ecstatic with #2.
I think that's pretty good.
I think that's amazing. Good
bit
times.
Of pirate stuff.
That's fab. All the links to all the good stuff that you've told us about will be in the YouTube description and, of course, in the podcast notes. Izzi, it's ISZI.com to find out more. It's been so much fun hanging out with you. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, thank you.
Hopefully see you again soon to talk about dinosaurs. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.